What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the Magic Square Tornado with the Ocular Max Impetus, both versions of a Masterpiece scale Vortex. So this guy came out a while back, August of 2019. This guy just came out here in July of 2025, so approximately 6 years apart. And I've had this guy on my shelf as my Vortex for a very long time, and I've been doing all the comparisons between the Magic Square and the Ocular Max. And before we get started, I just want to say I'm still planning to keep all of these. I still like the vehicle modes, so no matter the result of this, I'll still be holding on to both of these. That being said, as I always mention in these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible. Of course, there's subjectivity involved when you're comparing things like this. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do these comparisons to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection, including getting both of them like I'm doing. Another thing I wanted to mention is the background. I have two backgrounds. I have this scenic one and I have a white one. I tend to use the white one when I've got a white black figure or a figure that contrasts with this particular background. And I polled my audience recently just to see what people preferred, and 60% of people picked that they would prefer the scenic background over the white background. And one comment that I got that was interesting that I didn't really think about was most TVs today are LED, OLED, and that white background really shows up bright on those TVs. So I think this is easier on the eyes, even though there's some distracting stuff in the background. I'm going to try to use this as much as possible unless it contrasts with the figure going forward. So thanks for voting. Let me know what you thought. With that being said, let's get started. We'll start off with the accessories. All right, here are the accessories, and they're basically identical. We're not counting the combined mode accessories because those don't do anything for the robot modes. But let's just show them. We have, both of them come with a plastic gun, just done in the same color plastic as the figure. And then they both come with two arm weapons. And actually I'm going to put these on for the rest of the review just because he had this in the cartoons. It makes sense to put these on, but they're going to get a tie on accessories. Next we'll talk about the gimmicks, and both of these don't really have any gimmicks. They both have storage for the weapons in vehicle mode, and that's about it. So we'll give them a tie on gimmicks. And now let's talk about the cartoon accuracy and the sculpt. In order to do that, we'll put the G1 image there so you can take a look. And before this guy came out, I thought this was pretty close, but yeah, it's really no contest. The Magic Square has been nailing that cartoon look. It still looks like an adult looking thing, but they've also nailed the cues from the cartoon, and that's why I'm really loving this set. So I'm going to give cartoon accuracy over to Magic Square. I think they nailed it. When it comes to sculpt, I think I'm also going to give it to Magic Square. Now, typically, Ocular Max is really good at their sculpt. They've got good designs, but this one in particular, just this particular robot, does have a lot of kibble hanging out, especially on the legs. And by the way, something I forgot to show during the review is this panel. It comes up like this in the box. Just want to flip this down. That gives you the black on the back, which is cartoon accurate. So even further for cartoon accuracy, but it's just cleaner overall. MS really cleans up like everywhere. The backpack, the legs, the arms, everything is just very clean. So I'm going to give them sculpt as well. All right, next we'll talk about the paint on these two. And this is another one that's kind of a no-brainer, but I'll just show you what the paint on the Ocular Max. You get a little bit of red paint, blue paint here, a little bit of blue paint here, black for the windows, and that's basically it. On the Magic Square, pretty much 100% painted. The gray, the blue, the black, the red on the face, all that is painted. So we'll give paint over to Magic Square. All right, next we'll talk about the build quality of these two. And both of them are really well made. The Ocular Max, known for their nice quality plastic, overall, good design, things just work. Now, this particular figure does have a little issue, and that is this head. The neck joint loves to pop off, this ball joint, especially during transformation. There's a point where, it has to fit past certain things. and often it pops off, and it's just a little irritation. And I fixed this issue on later versions and later copies. So like the G2 version and the RID Rotor, all of those had the issue fixed, but this one still has it. But other than that, not really any issues. Same for the Magic Square. I don't have any issues on this as far as build quality. I'm not a huge fan of how they did the hips, but they've been doing this for all of them. They're all designed this way. They have a ratchet at the hip skirt, and then they have a friction joint for the hip. Like I said, none of them have had a problem. None of them are broken, but I just don't like the way they're doing it. But I'm not really going to call that a build issue. It's more of a preference in the hardware. So I'm going to give them a tie-in build. Both of them don't have any issues. All right, next we'll go over the articulation. In order to do that, we'll articulate each one individually. And I actually missed something on this figure, so I'm going to go over it now. It's going to be a little bit of a distraction from the comparison, but if we undo this backpack, just enough to unpeg it from here, and then we can undo the arms. You can just lift up this panel, get it out of the way. And you come to the inside here, you'll have to open these up in here and just get all this out of the way. And now we can get into here. And if you look in here, if you pull up on this waist section, just pull it up so maybe a 1/4 inch, you'll see there's a little sliding tab right here. And if you push in on the sliding tab, it will lock the lower ab, and you won't be able to do an ab crunch. So if your figure won't crunch, it's because this sliding tab right here, this lighter gray one, is pushed forward. So you want to pull that back. Now for combine mode, you do want to use that because there's a joint here on the side for combine mode. It'll allow you to get a bend at the elbow, and I'll put it back together before I show you that, but that is what that's for. I definitely didn't see that, didn't catch that, and that's what you need it for. So make sure that's unlocked. Then we'll put all this back. Let's go over the articulation. The head is on a rotating swivel. It gets up to there, down to there. No side to side, but it does rotate around. You have the red on the back of the head for the cartoon accuracy. The shoulders rotate around on a friction joint, out to the side on a hinge. You have rotation at the bicep. Double jointed elbow gets you the full bend. You can rotate these if you want in different positions, maybe use it as like a gun or something, I don't know. The wrist can rotate and you can get the dice roll. You can open up the fingers. Thumb is on a ball joint and a single pin, and the rest of the fingers on a pin and then a ball jointed hinge. So you get really nice articulation out of those fingers. One of the best in the game, in my opinion, in the Masterpiece scale. Coming down the waist, you have a waist rotation on a ratchet. And then, like I mentioned, as long as you have that unlocked, you can get an ab crunch all the way down to there. Coming down to the legs, you have a hip skirt on a ratchet. That rotates. If you just do that, you get the leg all the way up to there. You don't really need that additional joint, but that allows you to get the leg back. So if you get the hip skirt back down, you can get the leg all the way back to there, utilizing both. Out to the side on a ratchet, up to there. And by the way, people have told me that they've had paint issues, paint blemishes. I don't have anything like that on my copy. It looks pretty good. You have a double jointed knee. If you bend the upper knee first, which is on a ratchet, you can get the full bend. We have ankle tilts. The toe is connected to the heel. Sometimes that comes disconnected, but you can articulate the whole foot, and then the toe itself can rotate. And I know that was an extended part for this guy, but I really wanted to show you that locking tab. All right, let's go over the Ocular Max. The head is on a ball joint. It's actually a double ball peg I mentioned earlier. So you can rotate the neck, and then the head itself can go up and down, side to side, which we didn't get with that one, and rotates around. And you have a neck movement as well. Shoulders rotate around on friction, out to the side on a hinge. rotation at the bicep, although it gets hindered going outwards. It collides with this right here. You have a double jointed elbow, gets you the full bend, although it's a little awkward the way it posed, but it does work. Rotation at the wrist, no in and out movement at the wrist. You have individually articulated fingers, but they're curled and they only have one pin at the base, thumb as well as on a ball joint. So not as articulated hands here on the Ocular Max compared to the Magic Square. Coming down to the waist, we have a waist rotation all the way around. Ab crunch gets you down to there. Hip skirts will move out of the way in the front, back, and sides. The thighs are a little wonky just because of the way it's designed, but it will kick up to there on a ratchet. Back to there on a ratchet. Out to the side on a hinge. Just make sure you have the thigh rotated out like that. Rotation of the thigh at a cut joint. You have a double jointed knee. You don't really get past 90 though, due to the design. It's really more like a single, but also when you move this lower one, it starts to mess things up. So you're better off not moving that lower one, just using the top one for the articulation. Coming down to the feet, you have this joint here. This sort of locks in here, but you do get an ankle tilt up to there. And then you get, you don't really get a toe tilt. So pretty easy to see the Magic Square is going to win on articulation. They just have more overall. All right, now let's talk about the transformation and engineering on these two. When it comes to transformation, both of them are actually pretty fun and intuitive. Like I mentioned in my review for this guy, I didn't even look up a video. I just looked at the written instructions. And the written instructions do have some errors. For the most part, I was able to figure it out though. Like for example, that tab on the inside doesn't really talk about that. But very intuitive, very fun, very simple, but yet effective. Ocular Max, same thing, fun engineering. They really do a good job on their transformations overall. And I think this one is no exception. So I'm going to give them a tie in transformation. They're both relatively straightforward and easy. When it comes to engineering, though, I do feel a little bit differently. And we do have to give credit here for Ocular Max for doing the all-in-one gimmick. That is an engineering thing, right? You know, having to figure out how to get the all-in-one. The hands are stored here in the legs, and it does, you know, come out for combined mode. However, that all-in-one gimmick actually hinders this figure, in my personal opinion, because due to that, they need all this hardware here, and it does end up messing up the look of the legs, specifically from the inside and from the back, because they have to figure out a way to work out all of that stuff, right? So I don't know. I think, you know, when the all-in-one gimmick came out, it's pretty novel, but I think if it's going to cause a sacrifice for the legs or for the look, then go with the parts forming. But either way, I think I'm going to give engineering over to Magic Square. They really nailed how to get this thing smooth in both modes. It just nails both modes, actually all three modes. So we'll give engineering over to Magic Square. All right, and here they both are in their alt modes. And both pretty good looking, and I was reminded of the transformations getting them here. I did have a little bit of trouble back here with the Ocular Max just because of the hand that has to go back in there, but for the most part, they're pretty straightforward on both of them. Now, they both went for different things. The Magic Square clearly going for the cartoon. I'll put the image there so you can see it, but the Ocular Max going for a more realistic looking vehicle. For example, they even put in the rear view mirrors here. You know, the glass itself kind of looks more realistic. This looks more tuned and smooth, where here they have the silver outlines. It's a little bit bubbled out. The landing gear looks more realistic. The propellers look a little more realistic. So everything is kind of went for the more realistic vehicle, whereas the Magic Square went for the very, very true and accurate. It's the first one I've seen where they did this with the rear guns. They have it out on like a tail. So that's cool that they went through that extra trouble. By the way, someone mentioned that this extra piece of the gun can fit inside here. I did try it. I couldn't get it in there perfectly, so, and it's not in the instructions, so I don't know if it's meant to be or it's just by accident that people fit in there, but either way, they both have gun storage on the front. They both have, spinning propellers and a spinning blade on the back. They both have the landing gear, although they've done it slightly differently. The Magic Square is here, and then on the tail, whereas MMC has it right in the middle here. And they both roll on those wheels. So nothing really wrong with either one. I think they're both really good. If you prefer the more cartoon look, then you're going to go with this one. If you prefer the more realistic look, you go with this one. But I'm going to give them a tie on alt mode. I think both of them do what they're trying to do pretty well. If I was judging it based solely on the cartoon, I've already given them the point on to an accuracy, but if I was doing this category like that, they would definitely win. All right, next we'll talk about the cost on these two. And as always, I use the Ages 3 and Up website for the cost just because they stay consistent and they don't monkey with the prices after they post them. Impetus comes in at 145 CAD, which is about 105 US dollars. The Magic Square comes in at $145, 200 CAD. So we're going to give cost over to the Ocular Max. Now, I did buy this from Magic Square's website. It was a little bit cheaper than the price I just mentioned, but it was still more. So I'm going to give cost over to Ocular. And the final factor in this comparison is the Members' Choice category. We asked my members which one they prefer just based on their own personal preferences and no other factors. And Magic Square is going to win the Members' Choice category. Not really a surprise there. They're quickly becoming fan favorites on this set. If they upscale some of their other stuff, I think they're going to be a contender for sure in the Masterpiece game. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score there, and Magic Square is going to dominate in this comparison. And I'm not surprised. I gave this figure a 5 out of 5 during the review. Really, really nailed it on this character and also just in general in the figure quality. Now, that doesn't mean that the Ocular Max is no good. I still think it's a great figure. They have really nice designs. I'm actually planning to keep them for alt modes, but they do really work in a display. I think the all-in-one in this particular case did hinder them. A lot of times it doesn't seem to really make a difference, but this particular character, because of the legs, I think it does hinder the overall fit finish of the figure. Now, one thing I didn't really talk about here with these figures is the overall smoothness. This guy's a little bit stiff, trying to pose him. He has the articulation, it's just stiff, whereas this guy's really fluid and smooth. And that's something I think Magic Square has been able to pull off. Their articulation is really top notch. So I'm curious to see what they do with Blastoff. That character has some limitations due to the way they had to get the legs out of the back of the shuttle. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.